It's 2:45 in my clock. Shall we begin? Can we? All right, so I'll just share. So we are beginning with designing effective assessment for conceptual understanding. So before I begin, I just want to introduce myself. I am Tannu Jain, and I am an independent Erickson and Lanning concept-based instructional designer and trainer and a consultant too. So currently in the Indian public school, we have, in research, TLRI, that is TIPS Learning and Research Institute. I'm one of the trainer there. I'm one of the core member. I'm responsible for teacher training across all our campuses. So I do that. And then I have an experience of an IB teacher since past 12 years, grade 1 to 5. I've taken all. And I'm an instructional designer also. And I'm completely concept-based, inquiry enthusiast and approach. I love that. And then I have trained more than, around 1,000 people around within the school, outside the school, in so many years of my educator as an educator. So the goal which we are targeting today is basically the goal one is to understand the difference between assessment and activities. So here I mean assessment is assessment for understanding and activities. And then we try to learn how to create assessments that promote and measure conceptual understanding, because end of the day, when we are assessing students, we also need to understand that what is the conceptual understanding they are gaining out of it. And then we're trying to also understand is developing, creating authentic assessment tools that align with your learning objectives. So this is basically, we are heading towards that. So here I would like everybody to use this chat box thing. I have given 4 set of assessments, which I have taken from, from different educators where I've seen, I see when I train people do this. So I see different assessments in their lesson plan. And I have just taken few of them, like 4 over here. If you think, you can use your chat box. If you think, if it is an assessment for understanding, which will give you an assessment for understanding, write U adjacent to a number like 1-A or 1-U. Or if you think it's only an activity, then do so. So I want you to please open your chat box and type. So the first one is, can you see the screen, right? You're able to see all those questions. So I would like to know, like, what do you think? Third one is activity. For second, that is an assessment by Ms. Kalyani. Thank you so much, others. All right, according to Ms. Rashi, it is second and third is an activity, and first and fourth is assessment for understanding, which is assessment for understanding. All right. According to Ms. Simi, okay, second and third one is activity, and the remaining 2 are obviously then assessments, understanding, assessment for understanding. All right. Anybody still typing? I'll wait, otherwise we'll move to the next slides. Okay, creating balanced meal for yourself. Healthy meal, creating a balanced meal.
Tannu, I thought I had to give you, I was share a task or probably,
No, you have to write whether it's an assessment or it's an activity or it's an assessment of understanding. Oh,
okay.
Sure it is. Okay. So, all right. So, basically, so what does assessing for deep understanding mean? So basically assessing for deepest understanding, it means this is, again, in a sense, being an Erickson and Louis Lenning's independent trainer. So out of my training course, this is what is my basic understanding that, your assessing is your KUT. So we usually write in our planners, what does children will know, what does the children will understand, and what the children will be able to do. This is a common framework of assessments when we design assessments, when we design those learning intentions. So basically, you're assessing the critical content knowledge By knowledge, I mean the topics and the facts that are locked in time and space, that are not transferable ideas. So you are also assessing those critical knowledge content through which the youth learners are using or would use as a facts. You're also assessing the conceptual understanding that is your transferable idea. Your knowledge is locked in time and space, as I said, but your conceptual understanding is something which is a transferable idea. And third is D, that is your do. So key skills that you'll be able to do with that. So basically how I look into it is for this particular understanding, this is a critical content, my knowledge the learners will acquire. And with that acquisition of knowledge towards this understanding, they'll be able to do this. So this is how I put together. So this is how my assessment for deeper understanding goes. So where it's a three-dimensional approach. Normally, at many a times, in your learning assessment, in your learning intentions, maybe a two-dimensional approach where we say, I will try to analyze this to do this. I will analyze this about this content. But what at times misses your conceptual understanding. So I often advise the teachers who I come across is add an additional code to your existing learning intention so that my learners understand, so that you're not missing on something called as your U part within your assessment. And then you have a very specific target. So when you create, so what is a deep understanding is nothing but your knowledge, your skills, and your concepts. So how do I put it is, for towards this understanding, these are the facts and the knowledge that students will acquire. And then for that, they'll be able to do this. So when I'm framing my learning intention, I frame it as, okay, my students will be able to do this about this content so that they understand this. So this is how I frame it. So making sure that I do not miss any of this towards my deeper understanding. So now if you see it over here is, if you see this again now, in an excerpt from a given book, highlight figurative language. Do you think it is talking about concepts? Is it talking about content or knowledge and skill? Highlight is the skill they'll be doing it. Figurative language is the content, is the knowledge. Do you think there's a conceptual understanding here so that they will understand? Illustrate or design a healthy meal for a day. Illustrate is what they'll do. Healthy meal for a day is the knowledge through the knowledge component. What's the conceptual understanding? So if you try to analyze in this particular way, you will see all the four are an activity. All the four are an activity. Starting with a verb-driven learning intention towards a specific logged content doesn't give the scope for the transferable idea. Assessment is all about transferring your idea, whether a near transfer or a far transfer. Whether within the discipline or outside the discipline is okay. But it should be a transferable idea, giving that the scope so that we know they have understood. Is everybody okay with this? I mean, anybody has any question so far? Or is this understood? Activity versus assessment for understanding. So when we are designing it, so in the later part, you will really see how do we turn this into an assessment for understanding. So basically a simple guideline to design anything for assessment from understanding. I'm taking this from Lynn Erickson's book on concept-based curriculum and instruction. It has 3 stages. Identify the desired KUD. Design meaningful performance tasks that meets the critical KUD. And third is develop effective criteria to evaluate the result. If you have all these things, you will be assessing for conceptual understanding. So when you're designing this is what you have to be taking care of. Now, how do I do this? Identify the desired understanding, KUD. So K is nothing but the factual knowledge. U is nothing but the conceptual understanding. And D is nothing but the skill you would like to try. So I have given you one example. Normally, we are used to the practice of having one central idea or one statement of inquiry. When I do it, I have that one concept, but I have 7 to 9 generalizations, which are again a conceptual understanding statements within my inquiry, so that I have enough scope for transfer. For a 5 to 6, for a 6-week unit, I'm sure our students are able to articulate more than one big conceptual understanding. They are able to articulate around 6 to 9 conceptual understanding. And I try to create assessments around that. So this is one of the example I'm giving you is this was a language unit. One of the generalization is here. So writers use figurative language, action, dialogue, and vivid vocabulary to create mental images in the minds of the reader. For that, the critical content will be the type of figurative language, strong verbs, show and don't tell techniques, all these things. And what they'll be able to do is to organize and draft a short description with a logical reasoning of the events and identify vivid vocabulary that help visualization. So to understand my generalization or conceptual understanding, this is the critical knowledge I'm going to use. That are the facts. And these are the skills I'm going to target they'll be able to do. So this is my structured, desired thing. On this, I'll make my assessment. So when I make my assessment, I always keep it what is being assessed, why it is being assessed, and how it is going to be assessed. So what is assessed is nothing but the learner is investigating writing techniques to interest the reader. Why is nothing but your generalization, your conceptual understanding. And then how. So when I'm designing that how, I keep the one which you see on that another side, the task should be, I keep these highlighted things in mind when I'm designing this. So right now, if you see this, I have designed this. Our grade 4 learners are participating in a descriptive writing competition where they are given set of pictures to describe them. Learners can choose any one image for descriptive writing in around 1,000 to 150 words. Learners can use figurative language, dialogues, actions, or vivid vocabulary in their writing. Lastly, could provide the craft report that explains the reasoning for the choice of the above list. Now, if you look at this particular thing over here, I love craft report. Is it personal intellect and emotions, whether the tasks should be having that personal intellect and emotion. This means, am I giving them a proper scenario for them to really connect emotionally? Am I giving them this scenario for them to have that personal intellect? So, which has to be a broad performance task scenario, which they can connect with emotionally. And then within that, they have the opportunity to connect the facts they have learned with the connection with the conceptual understanding. So here, if you see that the figurative language, the dialogue, the action, are the facts, are giving me that connection between the craft report, which is a conceptual understanding. I'm making them write, which is my targeted skills. And I'm giving them relevant content with those pictures. And I'm still making it broad, targeted towards my conceptual understanding of creating the reader's mind, writers. So they are, as writers, creating mental images for the readers using these things. Very specific, intentional. So this is how I design a meaningful task. And then, based on this particular task, I create an effective criteria. So whenever I'm creating an effective criteria, I always have the understanding. Sorry, the second part has come as conceptual understanding. It should be content. That is the knowledge. It's a typing error here. And the last part is the skill. So what is the understanding I'm having? That again comes from my generalization. So basically the reasoning from the craft report, I can see the reason why I have chosen that dialogue, words, and figurative language. Content, I'm looking at the choice of words, the adjectives, and the things like that. And the skill is the organization. So as Ivy says, I'm using understanding, I'm using conceptual understanding, and I'm using particular skill. This is how I design it. Is there any questions so far with anybody? If you still have any question, I can repeat this. Next is, so basically what is the mistakes we usually make and what could be the possible solutions. So if the performance task fails to connect to generalizations and remain as an activity, what we need to really do is identify the clear KUD, use words from the generalization or from your conceptual statement, and then create the task. So you will not miss that. Second is performance task fails to engage the personal intellect or emotion of the leader or the learner, sorry. Then it is like create an authentic scenario or a real world situation so that it connects to them. Do not keep it very, very locked and directly to the point. Create it broad and give that scenario for them to really perform and transfer. Because conceptual, the transfer can be within the discipline, can be beyond the discipline also. If you're designing an interdiscipline, if your generalization or conceptual statement is part of your unit of inquiry, then it can be for the unit of inquiry where the English, this can be used within the unit of inquiry also. If it is a standalone unit of inquiry, then you can use it within the discipline also, depending on whether it is an interdisciplinary unit or a disciplinary unit. Depending on that, you can create the task as and when how you want to making them transfer that, depending on the situations. Next is task is only verb driven by content and evidence of understanding is not targeted. As I stated, again, you have to go back to the KUD, create a proper KUD, and then design assessment accordingly. If we do that, you will definitely not. So when you're doing that, you have to always check on those criterias, whether our generalization is being there, personal intellect is targeted or not. Again, have I given scope for the fact? Have I given scope for the skills? So if you're going to target all the three, you will not miss on that. And make sure your KUD is very strong. And the last is the task misses an effective evaluation scoring guide. Obviously, it's a framed, clear, effective guide where all the three are being there, not leaving anything to chance. So we need to make sure that nothing is being left to chance. Everything is pretty much intentional when we are designing assessment, because then only we will be able to collect the correct data, the qualitative or the quantitative data that can inform our teaching and learning. And then only we'll be able to give the correct feedback and feed forward for learners to move ahead and plan the next steps. Because if your KUD is correct, you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to transfer that. So this is the normal thing. So here what I would just like to say is your generalizations, all the generalization, which is my practice now, that I have 6 to 9 in one central idea you will have usually. Within that, I will have 6 to 9 generalizations, which each one is being monitored. I monitor everything. All may not be measured, but everything is documented. All are monitored. All are documented. Some are measured depending on whichever you wish to measure, and whichever is measured is reported. So I would just like to repeat once again is all the generalizations within my unit are monitored through an exit slip or through a VTR or through a short tweet. For all these things, usually which are usually monitored, I usually prefer giving an oral feedback or a slight, a simple feedback, which is very targeted. All are documented, but something which is being measured extensively, the generalizations which are measured extensively, which I wish to measure it because I want to report that on it, then I just try to put that within the proper rubric or a single point rubric, which I commonly use, or a checklist, and then I report on that. So this is how I, usually prefer. So all my, my usual practice of co-constructing the success criteria with learners is very simple. Many a times, I have an exemplar with them. I keep an exemplar and I ask them, what do you think the knowledge the child must have used, or the learner must have used to do this? What do you think the skill they must have demonstrated to do this? And what do you think an understanding they have transferred to do this? This helps to create the success criteria together. And then certain things which I'm extremely specific about it, I add it. And then we have that understanding. So I often use exemplars as a technique generally, And then slowly and steadily, it becomes a part of your culture within the classroom and that language within the classroom. Okay, for this kind of this understanding, what is my critical content, the knowledge I'm going to use or the facts I'm going to use, the skills I'm going to demonstrate, and the conceptual understanding I'm going to be transferring. So then I have a generalization board or a concept board where all the concepts, you have like a concept wall get put in, and then students use those concept words from there to create those generalizations within that and through a conceptual question. So I give them a conceptual question, which is like an exit ticket for me to monitor. Okay, they have reached, because if the answer is almost near to my generalization, that means understanding is there. So that becomes easy for me to really, monitor it. And then certain things I measure it and transfer is also easier done. This is what I wanted to share as one of my unit. And I would like to take a note that within the PYP thing, lines of inquiry are not your generalizations. Okay, lines of inquiries are different. This is one of my unit on natural disasters, which had this central idea and lines of inquiry. And these were the generalizations. So if you see this, the first two are more towards science specific, first three, then you have the next two towards social science specific. One is math specific and one is technology specific. So it's basically, it gives me a scope for disciplinary rigor within the generalization conceptual understanding. I try to make sure that all the subject specific understanding are being targeted within the unit if it is whichever I'm mapped with, and they have their separate conceptual understanding, and the transfer really happens within the unit. So you usually will have your summative assessment where most of the thing will have the transfer, but within your formative assessments will have all these individual transfers. Now, when I have all these individual transfers, sometimes I combine 2 or 3 generalization together to measure and report. And then individually also, I will monitor each one of them as an exit slip most of the time with my concept wall or concept juggling or making meaning different ways to come to this generalization. So I give them a conceptual question, expecting that they come to an answer similar to this. So when I say that they are coming to an answer similar to this and they're able to justify why they have said the way it is, then I'm so sure that they have got the conceptual understanding in the classroom. So now here is the one which we had at the starting, we began with, it's like activity. It's an excerpt, that's the thing. So I changed that into why, an author, and then in an excerpt. So explain how the use of figurative language create imaginary. So it's basically a craft report. I'm a fan of craft report. After learning about this craft report during my, learning of the concept-based trainer course, from Tiffany Brown, not from Tiffany, from Tiffany Brown. I love craft report, and as a language teacher, if you are, please, and especially middle years and higher, please, please go for it. And it's a wonderful, wonderful strategy to really know how your students have understood the concepts. Like writing a craft report of a particular genre or a particular piece or a particular, a particular concept which you have targeted. So if you try to, okay, somebody has raised hand. I'm sorry, Miss Rashi. Do you have any question? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Yeah, hi, Ms. Tannu. So
Hi.
I have a question. You talked about skills, okay?
Yeah.
Now it's descriptive writing. Now, writing a descriptive paragraph or an essay, will that be considered a skill? Correct? If
Writing
I'm
a
not wrong.
descriptive paragraph in an essay, it's no, within that, so writing a description or writing a descriptive paragraph and an essay is again very much locked. Within that, what are you expecting? When I say descriptive paragraph or essay, writing or using, vivid vocabulary to describe a particular pattern, or describe, certain, whatever things you have, and then put it in an
Yeah,
organized way.
using imagery, five
Yes,
senses, or
yes.
describing. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, even your skill should be a transferable idea. Skills should also not be locked. It should be general.
Okay.
If it is again locked, or you will
Okay.
not be able to transfer. I mean, have I
Okay.
answered your question?
So writing it in an organized form, that
Mm,
will be a skill.
yeah. When I say writing, so
Yeah.
when I say writing, you will be thinking about planning, editing, using paragraphing, So the child has used different paragraphs with different, main, with a clear-cut main idea and a supporting detail to organize it.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So this is
Yeah.
for depending on your specific criteria or the conceptual understanding of writing. If you are going with a format.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yes. And
So,
if
ma'am,
I focus on the use of, for example, the use of five senses, imagery, that will be my conceptual understanding.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Now, for that
Because
conceptual
earlier I
understanding,
used to
what you
think it different.
exactly want them to do? You want them to use vocabulary. You want them to use dialogues.
Yeah,
You want them to use the elements of writing. You want them to plan. You want them to
right,
organize.
right.
You want them to edit. You want them to proofread. So what you want them to do around that is your skill.
excuse me, ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, Miss Simi?
See, there are 4 skills: listening, speaking, reading, writing, basic skills in the language.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, if I'm talking about the reading,
Hmm.
okay, so so what is the conceptual understanding in that key?
Okay.
Student will read the words appropriately in a proper sound or what?
If you're going with the syllabification, as you said, sounds and things, so then there has to be a conceptual understanding around that readers syllabize words to, to make meaning of them and read fluently,
Okay.
right?
So
Now,
that is conceptual
that
understanding.
is right. So which is transferable idea whenever and whichever you're reading. Either you're reading this text, you're reading any kind of text, I'm syllabifying. So what I'm teaching them
Okay.
is the syllabification, to double syllabification, 3 sound syllabification, different syllabification. What I want them to do around this is for them to really identify those syllables. Are they able to identify and use those syllables to reach that within
Okay.
my
Got
reading?
it.
Yes. So
Thank you.
this is how we do it. So you need to simplify. Sometimes what happens is by our normal practice of, lesson planning, we usually have one big idea and within that we do. Now, if you simplify that idea into very specific, what a reader will do, what a writer will do, what a speaker will do, and create short conceptual understanding of transfer within the classroom, what will happen is your learning is very intentional. You will not leave it to chance. Your monitoring is clear. And then when you create assessments based on that, it becomes very, very easy for you to really figure out how things have to be done. So feedback is again very specific. You missed this content, your skill is this, and this understanding was not there.
And understanding will discuss in the starting of the unit.
No, we derive to that understanding. This is for you.
Okay.
Understanding is for you. I usually prefer inductive approach. So
Okay.
understanding is for you. So one of the ways of checking whether they have understood is not whether they're coming to your understanding or not towards the end. If they are coming closer to your understanding, that means we all are in the same page. If they can
Okay.
do that with this, with the same understanding with the different examples, perfect. They have transferred it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else has any other question? Okay. So this is the way I have changed that, always whenever nowadays when I try to design it, it is basically, personal intellect, patterns, whether it is giving the scope for knowledge to be connected, targeted skills. So if you see, all these are being shifted. See, this one is again the healthy meal. As a nutritionist, now you are giving that scenario of a bigger one and suggest a well-balanced diet for a day for a 7-year-old or a cousin of a similar age or an athlete. And then you try to do this and then you create a choice meal. But here you also have to give the timing, the quantity, and the reason for your choice. This will help me to give you that balanced, which I'm targeting my conceptual understanding. It's just that you have to create it broad scenario based, specific to the target understanding, keep your understanding on the top, and then try designing it where you still give scope for knowledge and still give scope for the skill to be used. Next one is that safety kit. So you are a disaster management person. You are you live in a locality, for example, if you see this, we are in Tamil Nadu, we often face, we have sometimes flooding, especially in Chennai and these areas. So if you are sitting, and then how do you prepare yourself for the next year's flood? What will you do? What will be your preparation? What will be your prevention ideas? What will you do? And how will you make sure that your community also know about it? So these are the things, you can try doing that. So I kept it very, very short. I know yes. And I just wanted to reflect in the chat box, I used to think assessment for understanding was dash, but now I think. So if you can share that. And if you have any questions, we can definitely take it. If you have any idea, we can definitely do it. And, or if any new thing you have learned, which you were not knowing it, and this session really helped open the eye for you, please do share with me. Or still we have time if individually wants to, unmute yourself and share it. I'm okay with that. So we'll take both question answers and reflection together. All right. Anybody has any question? I kept it very, very short. I hope. I know it's well within the time. You want a few resources on KUD? If you want to, if you ask me, I would just share, if you have Rachel Friend's or Lynn Erickson's book on thinking and concept-based learning, that will be good. That will be really, really good. One more thing I just want to add is when we are differentiating, or when I differentiate instructions, my conceptual understanding don't change. What changes is my knowledge and my skills. My conceptual understanding remains same because we want students to reach the same target, but I can change, do variety within, the content I use around it, or the skill I use along with my content, but the conceptual understanding still remains the same. You want me to put the names of the book over here? One second. Yeah, concept-based curriculum and instruction for thinking classroom. For thinking classroom, that is one, and another one is concept-based inquiry in action. That's another. So if you would like to try that, go through that. These are the books, and yeah, I usually refer them because yes, these are the common books. And being a concept-based trainer myself, they are concept-based specialists. So I've been using and following them. All right, if nobody has anything to share further, so it was really nice connecting with you. You can follow me on LinkedIn. My name is Tannu Jain. You can follow me, that's the same name on the Facebook, and as well as on Instagram. Please do follow me. And if you still have any clarity on, how to create those generalizations, and if you want any help, how can we create those KUDs and
Share your email ID also. So if we have anything else, then we will connect.
All right, tannu.dabria@gmail.com. Okay, that's my email ID. And then if you want my phone number, I can do that also. Okay, that's my contact number and that's my mail ID. So if if you need any help in creating those generalizations or unit planning or concept-based unit planning, I can really help you with that.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Welcome. So I think we have concluded it quite quickly. And so if you want, you can move to the next room, I think with Anjali, if I'm not wrong, for I think solo taxonomy sessions. If you want to attend that, we can do so. Thank you.